On the coldest night the junkyard had seen in years, silence pressed down like a heavy blanket. The stars above were hidden behind thick, dirty clouds. Every corner of the sprawling alien scrapyard was littered with broken machines, twisted metal, and piles of garbage thrown away by those who never cared who might be living among the ruins. Deep between two giant heaps of rusted starship parts, a small alien girl crouched. Her skin, once a soft shade of blue, was now pale and dirty. Her clothes were torn rags, barely covering her thin body. She shivered in the icy wind, arms wrapped tightly around her knees, eyes darting from shadow to shadow. For hours, she had begged every person who passed by, but no one even looked at her. A group of aliens had walked by earlier, laughing and tossing scraps behind them. One of them had kicked a broken circuit board in her direction. "Take it, trash," he had sneered. Not even glancing down, even the service robots ignored her, rolling right past as if she didn't exist. Her stomach hurt from hunger. She pressed her hand to her side, hoping for the pain to fade. She tried not to cry, but a small, weak whimper escaped her lips. It sounded so quiet it was almost swallowed by the wind. It seemed like nobody would ever care. Suddenly, the night was broken by a new sound, heavy footsteps crunching on the gravel and scrap. The steps were different from the alien patrols or the wheeled robots. They were slower, almost uncertain, as if the person walking was unsure of where to go. The girl shrank back into the shadows, heart pounding in her chest. Was it someone who would hurt her? Maybe just another stranger to ignore her suffering. The footsteps drew closer. Then a voice, deep and unfamiliar, spoke into the darkness. "Hello? Is someone there?" The accent was different, Truff. Human. The girl blinked, surprise. Humans almost never came here. They had their own places, their own problems. She wondered why he would wander through a place like this. The human man was tall and strong, a heavy jacket and a simple light in his hand. His boots crunched on broken glass and metal as he stepped carefully, scanning the area with his light. He stopped when his beam landed on her, tucked between the wrecks. She flinched at the light, covering her eyes. The man lowered the beam, making his voice softer. "It's okay. I didn't mean to scare you. Are you hurt?" He took a step closer, then stopped, unsure. The girl stared up at him, trembling. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came. "Out, please. Don't leave me here." The human hesitated, looking around. Was this a trick? He had heard stories about thieves hiding in the junkyard, luring people close before attacking. But the girl looked so small, so weak, and the fear in her eyes was too real. He knelt down, staying just out of arm's reach. "My name's Jack," he said quietly, voice gentle. "I'm not here to hurt you. I got lost, my map's broken." "Are you alone out here?" The girl nodded, teeth chattering. "I've been alone for days. They threw me out, said I was no good." Her voice was cracked and dry. Jack frowned, reached into his jacket, pulling out a small protein bar. He unwrapped it slowly, careful not to startle her, and held it out in his open hand. "Here, eat. You need it more than me." She looked at the bar, then at him, then slowly reached out with shaking hands. As she took the food, their eyes met hers, full of fear and doubt. His full of worry and sadness. In that moment, something changed. The silence of the junkyard felt less heavy, as if hope had crept in for the first time in years. Jack watched as the girl nibbled the bar, trying not to eat too fast. "Do you have a name?" he asked, keeping his voice soft. She shook her head. "They never gave me one," she whispered. "I was just property. Now I'm nothing." Jack's hands curled into fists. He couldn't imagine treating anyone this way, not even a stranger. "Not nothing," he said firmly.
"You're
alive. That means you matter." Suddenly, the peace was shattered by loud shouts and the distant, angry voices speaking a harsh alien language. Bright lights swung over the piles of trash, growing closer with every second. The girl's eyes widened in terror. Jack looked up, tension shooting through him. Someone didn't want him here. Someone was coming in fast. He knelt beside the girl, shielding her with his body. The shouts grew louder, echoing off the metal walls of the junkyard. The darkness was no longer silent. It was filled with danger. And in that moment, Jack realized he would have to make a choice: run away and save himself, or risk everything. To protect the girl who had nothing left, Jack's heart pounded as he crouched lower behind the mound of broken hull plates. The small alien girl pressed close to his side. The shouts grew louder, carrying across the heaps of metal and plastic. They sounded angry, almost desperate, and though Jack didn't understand the words, he knew trouble when he heard it. The girl clutched the empty wrapper, her eyes wide and wet. Her thin shoulders trembled so hard, he thought she might collapse right there in the dirt. He looked at her and whispered, "Stay close. Don't let go of my jacket, no matter what." She nodded, fingers curling tight in the thick fabric. Drew in a slow breath. His instinct screamed at him to run, but he couldn't leave her, not after seeing the terror on her face. Lights swung over the trash piles, yellow, harsh, searching for something, for someone. Heavy feet crunched over debris. Two alien figures appeared, tall and broad, their armor marked with red symbols. They held glowing rods, prodding the garbage as if looking for a lost animal. One spat, the sound sharp in the night, and barked orders to the other. The second alien grunted and kicked aside a pile of old cables, sending broken glass scattering across the ground. Jack's hand tightened on a rusted metal pipe he'd grabbed earlier, his only weapon. The girl whimpered, so quietly he almost didn't hear her. She pressed herself into his side, hiding her face in his sleeve. Now Jack could feel her heartbeat racing, wild and panicked. The aliens drew closer, their lights flashing over the spot where Jack and the girl hid. He held his breath, praying they would pass by. For a moment, it looked like the aliens might move on. But then one's light froze, shining directly onto Jack's boot. A shout rang out. Both aliens lunged forward, raising their rods. Jack sprang up, pushing the girl behind him. "Stay back," he yelled, brandishing the pipe. The aliens shouted something angry, their words harsh and fast. One swung at him, missing by inches. Jack ducked, using every bit of strength to keep the girl shielded. He felt a jolt of fear, fear, the kind that freezes your blood, but it also made him move faster. He swung the pipe, connecting with one alien's arm. There was a hiss of pain, and the rod clattered to the ground. Jack scooped it up, switching weapons, as the other alien lunged for the girl. She shrieked and stumbled, but Jack grabbed her wrist and pulled her back. "We have to run," he hissed. The girl nodded, her legs shaking but moving as fast as she could. Together they dashed between two mounds of trash, weaving through narrow spaces. The aliens chased after them, cursing and shouting. One fired a stun pulse, sending blue sparks sizzling through the air, missing Jack by inches. The pulse hit a pile of old droids, making them twitch and jerk like broken toys. Jack and the girl squeezed through a narrow gap, barely wide enough for a human. He heard the aliens scraping behind them, too big to follow quickly. He used the moment to drag the girl deeper into the junkyard, dodging rusty beams and sharp glass, never letting go of her hand. Their breath puffed in clouds, the cold biting at their skin. Jack's lungs burned, but he forced himself forward. He had no idea where he was going, just away from those angry voices, those searching lights. The girl gasped for air, stumbling over a pipe, but Jack caught her before she fell. Almost. "They're just a little farther," he promised. Not knowing if it was true, they ducked into the dark shadow of a half-buried shuttle. Its hull split open and half swallowed by the earth. Inside, it was pitch black and silent, except for the sound of their ragged breathing. Jack crouched low, pulling the girl down beside him. He pressed his back against the cold metal, trying to steady his heart. Outside, the aliens' voices grew, fainter, their lights drifting away as they searched elsewhere. The girl's sobs slowed, her breathing evening out. Jack wrapped his jacket tighter around her shoulders, trying to give her whatever warmth he could. For a long moment, they just sat there listening. The silence was thick, broken only by the wind and the occasional creak of metal settling. Jack listened for any sign of the aliens returning. but all he heard was the distant thump of their boots fading into the night. After a while, the girl spoke, her voice trembling. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. "No one else ever did." Jack hesitated, looking at her. Her big, glowing eyes seemed to search his face for a reason. "'Cause it's the right thing," he said softly. "You don't deserve to be thrown away. No one does." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she managed a tiny, grateful smile. Outside, somewhere far off, another shout echoed, a reminder that they were not safe yet. But for the first time, the girl didn't feel completely alone. Jack leaned back, gripping the strange alien rod, ready for whatever came next. He didn't know how they'd escape, or if they even could. But one thing was certain, he wasn't leaving her behind, and in the darkness, the girl began to hope. Asterisk, asterisk. Jack and the girl huddled inside the broken shuttle, the cold metal biting through their clothes. Outside the junkyard, night sounds returned. The wind whistled through sharp holes, scraps clattered with every gust. For a long while, neither moved. Jack listened hard, waiting for the heavy steps or angry voices. But there was nothing, only the far-off howl of a stray animal and the distant electric buzz of city lights beyond the dump. He looked down at the girl beside him. In the dim blue glow from her skin, he could see the outline of her face, sung thin cheeks marked with dirt. Her eyes blinked slowly, fighting sleep and fear. I held the alien rod with both hands as if it might protect her. Jack studied. The shuttle's inside a mess of old seats, control panels with dead lights, and wires hanging like cobwebs. He found a torn seat cushion and slid it to the girl. "Use this, keep off the cold." She nodded, curling herself smaller, still watching him closely. He pulled his knees to his chest and let out a long, tired sigh. The night stretched on. After some time, the girl's voice broke the silence. "They will come back," she whispered. "If they find us, they hurt you too." There was a soft warning in her words, as if she wanted him to run, to save himself. Jack shook his head. "They'll have to catch me first," he replied, trying to sound braver than he felt. "But I won't leave you. What's your name?" He realized again she'd said no one ever gave her one. She hesitated, then shook her head. "No name. They called me Waste." He felt a sick twist in his stomach. "That's not a name. I'll call you Sky. Because you're blue, and you need to be free, not trapped in this place." The girl looked at him, eyes wide, as if surprised someone would give her a name. She touched her chest, as if feeling the new name settle inside her. "Sky," she whispered, almost like a question. She gave a small nod, her lips trembling. "I like it." Jack smiled, glad for a moment of something good, but he knew the danger wasn't gone. He listened again, still nothing. He leaned back, thinking. He had no way to contact his own team. His communicator was dead, batteries frozen by the cold. He couldn't risk going back to the main road. The searchers would expect that Sky shifted, sitting up. "There's a safe place," she said quietly. "Old robot he hides in the far yard. He helps. Sometimes maybe he hides us." Jack nodded, hope lighting his tired face. "We'll wait for the sun. When it's easier to move." He patted her shoulder gently, careful not to frighten her. Sky nodded, curling tighter on the cushion. The hours crawled by. At some point, Sky drifted into sleep, soft breaths warming the air between them. Jack stayed awake, watching the shuttle's doorway and listening for trouble. His mind spun with plans. He thought about running, about fighting, about somehow getting help. He knew one thing: he couldn't let Sky get caught. Not again. As dawn began to break, a pale line of light slipped through the cracks in the hull. Jack nudged Sky gently. "Time to go." She blinked awake, shivering, but nodded and sat up quickly. Outside, the world was washed silver and blue. The junkyard was strangely quiet, with only a few figures in the far distance. Jack pulled his jacket around Sky's shoulders again. "Lead the way," he whispered. She nodded and crawled out of the shuttle, moving with surprising care for someone so weak. They crept between piles of metal and glass, careful not to make a sound. Sky's bare feet barely made a whisper as she led Jack deeper into the yard. away from the main paths. Once they heard voices, loud, angry, searching, but Sky stopped, pulled Jack down behind a wall of old robot heads, and waited. Jack's heart thundered in his chest, but the searchers moved on. Grumbling, Sky pointed to a stack of crates, barely visible behind a mountain of scrap. "There," she whispered. "Old robot lives there. Sometimes he helps, gives food." Jack nodded and followed, crouched low, the alien rod tight in his fist. They reached the crates. At first, nothing happened. Jack wondered if Sky was wrong, if the robot had left or been scrapped. But then, with a slow whir, a small round eye lit up in the darkness. An ancient robot patched with mismatched plates and moving on 3 uneven wheels rolled forward. Its voice buzzed softly, friendly, but full of static. "Who comes to old Cog's home?" Sky stepped forward, trembling. "It's me, Cog. I brought a friend. We need help." "Wait." The robot's eye blinked. It rolled closer, scanning Jack with a blue beam. "Human. Dangerous, but kind to Sky. You may stay. But others search for you." Jack nodded, grateful. "Thank you. Just need a little time. We'll be gone soon." The robot made a humming sound, a mix between a laugh and a sigh, as the sun rose higher. They hid together in Cog's secret space, safe for now, but all 3 knew the safety wouldn't last forever. The junkyard's heart, hope flickered. But the hunt was only just beginning. Jack paced inside the small space Cog called home, nerves raw. The robot's hideout was a cramped nest built from scavenged crates and dented panels, buried beneath a mound of useless engine parts. The faint scent of old oil and burnt circuits hung in the air, but it was warm compared to the icy junkyard. Outside, Sky sat on a worn blanket Cog had offered, her blue arms wrapped tight around her knees, eyes darting every time metal creaked or wind rattled the scrap walls. Old Cog hummed softly, fiddling with a half-broken power cell. "Hunters search with new eyes today," he buzzed, his voice full of static. "They bring dogs, real ones, with noses sharp enough to find sadness." Sky flinched at the thought, shrinking closer to the wall. Jack crouched down, whispering, "We can't stay here forever. If they bring dogs, it's only a matter of time before we're found." He looked to Cog, hoping the robot might have another trick. "Is there a way out of the yard, some tunnel, maybe? Something only you know?" Lenses lashed in. The dim light? There are tunnels. Dangerous, collapsed, full of poison air and sleeping machines. But a brave heart might make it through. The problem is, the other end opens at the city border. Guards there don't like my kind. Door hers. Or yours. Sky's eyes widened, but Jack saw a spark in them, something like determination. "We can try. I'm not afraid of dark tunnels," she said quietly. Her voice was steadier now, fear mixed with something new. Jack nodded. "It's better than waiting for them to drag us out." He stood and moved to the small hole Cog called a door, peering out at the yard. Early sunlight glinted off the heaps, but he could see movement, hunters in armor, moving with purpose, sweeping slowly closer.
Oh, well, one had a big growling beast on.
A chain. The dog's nose pressed to the dirt, sniffing. He pulled back, heart racing. They're getting close. Cog beeped, rolling over to a small trapdoor hidden under a blanket. "Here, tunnel starts. You go soon. I hold them off." "Only scrap, nobody cries for Cog." The old robot's eye flickered, a tiny show of courage. Sky stood, stumbling a little, but Jack caught her arm. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. She nodded, squeezing his hand. They knelt by the trapdoor as Cog twisted a hidden bolt, unlocking it with a shudder and a hiss. The smell from below was thick metal, earth, and something sour, but Jack forced himself not to flinch. He swung his feet into the darkness, feeling around with his boot until he found a ladder. Sky followed, climbing down after him, her breath ragged but steady above. Cog whispered, "Go fast. Listen for my signal, 3 beeps if danger comes. Behind, good luck, Sky. Good luck, human." Jack nodded, his eyes adjusting to the gloom. The tunnel was narrow, lined with ribbed plastic and old wires, barely tall enough for him to walk without ducking. Sky moved ahead, lighter and quicker, her glowing blue skin just visible in the dark. Jack gripped the rod tighter and moved after her, keeping one hand on the cold wall. They walked in silence, the sound of their footsteps echoing ahead. Sky's breathing calmed, and she began to talk in a low voice. "This tunnel, I used it once, long ago, when I ran from the first family who bought me. But I got scared and turned back. Maybe I should have kept running." Jack listened, anger building at the thought of her being bought and sold like junk. "This time you're not alone," he promised, voice echoing softly. The tunnel twisted, sometimes wide, sometimes so tight Jack had to squeeze through sideways. Twice, they had to crawl under fallen beams. Once, they passed a pile of silent robot bodies, stacked like discarded toys. Sky whispered a quiet goodbye as they went by, her hand trembling. Hours seemed to pass. Finally, the tunnel widened into a round chamber. Pipes dripped water from above. Sky paused, ears twitching. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Jack listened. Faintly, he caught a distant sound, a heavy metallic scraping, and then, even fainter, 3 quick beeps, echoing through the tunnel from where they'd started. Cog's warning. Jack's heart leaped. "They're in the tunnel. We have to move now." He pulled Sky forward, running through ankle-deep water, following the tunnel as it sloped up. A blast echoed behind them, maybe a weapon, maybe the hunters smashing their way in. Panic surged, but Jack pushed on, feeling Sky stumble beside him, refusing to let go. A tiny circle of light appeared ahead, a grating. Maybe daylight, hope at last. They climbed toward it, hands raw on the cold ladder. Sky slipped, but Jack caught her, pushing her up to the grate. Together, they heaved. The metal aside, cold, fresh air rushed in. Above, the city wall towered, gray and forbidding, but alive with sound. Sirens howled in the distance, guards shouting, but for a moment they were free. Jack helped Sky out, both of them gasping. Behind, the tunnel rattled as hunters closed in, but Jack dropped the grate, locking it. He looked at Sky, both of them shaking, but a wild, stubborn hope shone in her eyes. They had escaped the junkyard. But now, the city and whatever new dangers it held waited for them both. Jack and Sky pressed themselves against the cold wall of the city's outer barrier, hearts pounding. For a few precious seconds, the world outside the junkyard seemed bigger and brighter, and also more dangerous. Buildings rose high above, casting long shadows. The air carried new smells, burnt oil, distant food, and 1,000 unknown lives rushing past on busy streets. Jack wiped dirt from his face, glancing over his shoulder at the blocked tunnel. No sign of the hunters, but he knew that wouldn't last. Sky looked up in awe, her blue eyes wide. She had never seen the city so close before. Her thin hands trembled. Not just from cold, but from fear and excitement mixed together. Jack squeezed her shoulder gently. "Stay with me. We'll find somewhere safe," he whispered. Guards patrolled the wall nearby, their armor shining, faces hidden behind dark visors. Jack steered Sky behind a row of crates, keeping low. The city was awake, alive, and not interested in strangers crawling out of the ground. Sirens howled farther off, making Sky flinch every time. "What are those?" she whispered. "Trouble for someone else," Jack answered, though he wasn't sure. He scanned the street, searching for a path forward. Above, a transport hovered, casting down a cold, humming wind that tossed Sky's hair. Jack motioned for her to move fast, dodging from shadow to shadow. Keeping the city's attention away from them, they found shelter in a narrow alley between 2 old supply shops. The smell of hot bread drifted from a nearby bakery, and Sky's stomach rumbled. Jack pressed a finger to his lips. "Wait here, I'll get us something," he said. He checked his pockets, only a few coins and a faded ID badge. He hoped it would be enough. The bakery was crowded. Jack joined the line, keeping his head down. His clothes were torn, face smudged with grime, and people eyed him warily. But when it was his turn, he bought 2 loaves and a small carton of milk, using the last of his money. As he left, the shopkeeper's eyes narrowed. "Looked like trouble," she muttered. But Jack only nodded. grateful for the food. Back in the alley, he handed Sky the warm bread and milk. She tore off pieces, eating slowly as if afraid it might vanish. "It's good," she whispered, smiling for the first time. They rested for a short while. Jack listened to passing voices most. Were hurried. No one paid much attention to a dirty man and a shivering girl in a shadow. But just as he thought they were safe, a group of city enforcers turned into the alley. Their uniforms were dark blue, and each carried a stun baton. Jack's heart jumped. "Get behind me," he said, standing in front of Sky. The enforcers stopped, blocking the alley's exit. The leader stepped forward. "Papers, both of you." "Dow," he demanded. Jack fumbled for his badge, showing it with a shaking hand. The leader glanced at it, then at Jack's face. "You're not from around here? And the girl?" His voice was suspicious, eyes hard. "She's my responsibility," Jack said quickly. Hoping the words would sound official, the enforcer's gaze narrowed. "She looks like one of the lost ones. Act. The city doesn't want trouble with their kind." He motioned to the others, who stepped forward, closing in. Sky shrank back, clutching Jack's arm. Jack's mind raced for a way out. "We're just passing through." "Looking for a medic, she's sick," he said. The leader snorted. "That's not my problem. You can come with us, explain to the captain, or we can make things difficult." The threat was clear. Just then, a new voice echoed down the alley, soft, metallic, and familiar. "This way, hurry." It was old Cog, the robot, rolling up from a side door, somehow having followed them through the city's underbelly. The enforcer spun, surprised. Cog fired a spray of sparks from his arm, creating a flash of light and smoke. "Run," Jack shouted. He grabbed Sky's hand, dodging past the blinded enforcers, and followed Cog through the side door. They rushed down twisting steps, into the dark, away from angry shouts and batons slamming against the wall. Down in the dim hallway, Cog's eye flickered. No time. Hunters everywhere. "You must leave the city, find the old train under the central bridge. It goes beyond the border. Safer there." Jack nodded, panting. "Thank you, Cog. You saved us again." Sky clung to the robot, eyes shining with gratitude. But above, heavy boots thundered, alarms blared. Someone had spotted them. The enforcers were calling for backup, and hunters were closing in fast. Jack led Sky and Cog through the tunnels, breathless, heart pounding. The way ahead was uncertain, every step full of risk. Yet together, they ran toward the only hope left, and the promise of freedom, as they reached the shadow of the central bridge. The ground shook with the roar of an approaching train, and behind them, the city's alarms screamed louder, warning that time was running out. The ground trembled as the train screeched to a halt beneath the central bridge. Jack pulled Sky and old Cog behind a stack of crates, his heart racing as flashing red lights from city enforcer vehicles lit up the shadows. The sirens were deafening now, echoing under the bridge. Above, city guards shouted commands. There, voices bouncing off the concrete and steel. Sky squeezed Jack's hand tightly, blue fingers cold but strong. Her glowing eyes darted from the guards to the battered train. The carriages were covered in graffiti and the doors creaked open with a tired moan. At the far end, an old conductor waved for people to board quickly. Refugees, workers, and the desperate hurried past. Eyes low to avoid trouble, Jack turned to old Cog. "Will you come with us?" he asked, not wanting to leave the brave robot. Behind Cog whirred, his metal body dented from the escape. "Cog cannot leave the city. My power corralled, too weak for long travel." "I slow you down," he said with a gentle buzz. Sky bent down, hugging Cog's round chassis. "Thank you for everything," she whispered, tears glinting in her bright eyes. The robot beeped softly, a sad song in the chaos. "Sky, you are more than scrap. You are hope." The words seemed to warm her, even as the world grew colder. Around them, Jack heard footsteps, enforcers storming down the tunnel, getting closer. He pulled Sky to her feet. "We have to go now." They sprinted for the train, dodging other travelers. Jack flashed his old badge at the conductor, who barely glanced at it before waving them aboard. The doors rattled shut just as the first enforcer rounded the corner, baton raised. The train jerked into motion, picking up speed as it left the city's glow behind. Jack and Sky collapsed onto a bench, gasping for breath. For a moment, Jack thought they might have made it. He looked out the dirty window at the shrinking lights of the city, but worry twisted in his gut. This train was headed beyond the border toward lands unknown. The carriage was filled with tired faces. A woman with a baby stared at Sky, then looked away quickly. An old man in patched clothes gave Jack a nod, as if he understood too well what it meant to run. Sky sat close to Jack, not letting go of his hand. The train rattled over tracks, the sound soothing but tense. Overhead, the lights flickered. A sudden announcement came through the crackling speakers. Attention. All passengers, prepare ID for inspection. Enforcers boarding at the next checkpoint. Jack's stomach dropped. He had no papers for Sky, and his own badge had barely worked in the city. He squeezed Sky's shoulder, whispering, "Stay calm. We'll get through this." As the train slowed, enforcers in black uniforms boarded. They moved from seat to seat, demanding identification. Jack watched them come closer, heart thumping. Sky's fingers tightened on his hand. When the enforcer reached them, he stared at Jack, then at Sky. "Papers," he barked. Jack handed over his ID, hoping the darkness and dirt on his face would hide his fear. The enforcer scanned the badge, frowning. "This is expired." At Sky, noticing her blue skin, her frightened eyes. "And hers?" "She lost hers. She's my daughter," Jack lied, voice steady. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. "She doesn't look like you." His grip on his baton tightened. Passengers around them fell silent, watching. Jack forced himself to smile. "She's adopted. Please. She's sick. We're running from trouble in the city." The enforcer stared at Sky. Her lip quivered, but she met his gaze bravely. After a long, heavy pause, the enforcer shrugged. "If I see you off the train at the next stop, I forget I saw you. But if you're still here when we search again, there'll be questions." He tossed the badge back and moved on. Jack let out a shaky breath, relief flooding him. The train rattled on, picking up speed. Outside, the city faded, giving way to endless plains and the first hint of sunrise. Sky looked at Jack, gratitude and hope shining in her eyes. Jack squeezed her hand. "We're almost safe." "Just a little farther," he promised, even as doubt gnawed at him suddenly. The train gave a violent jolt, screeching brakes, panicked shouts, the sound of metal tearing. The carriage shook, throwing people to the floor. Jack grabbed Sky, shielding her as sparks flew outside the windows. Through the chaos, dark shape loomed on the tracks of blockade, with more enforcers and behind them, the hunters from the junkyard. They had not given up. The train screeched to a halt, trapped. Jack's heart pounded. There was nowhere left to run. He looked at Sky, fear mixing with determination. "Whatever happens, I'm not leaving you," he whispered. Together, they braced for the final fight, hope flickering against the darkness. As freedom dangled just out of reach, the sudden stop of the train threw Jack and Sky hard against the bench. Round them, chaos exploded. People shouted. Some screamed, and others tried desperately to hide beneath seats or against the trembling walls. The harsh, metallic voice of the train conductor called for calm, but no one listened. Red lights blinked above and through the dirty windows. Jack saw the truth. They were surrounded. Enforcers in black uniforms, faces masked and weapons drawn, moved in from the rear. While the hunters, those same brutal aliens from the junkyard, waited at the front, faces twisted with rage. Jack's mind raced. Every exit was blocked. Enforcers stormed through the carriages, pulling out anyone who looked unusual. Searching for Sky. The hunters barked orders in their cruel tongue, pointing directly at the blue-skinned girl. Jack hugged her close, shielding her with his body. Passengers shrank away, terrified of being caught in the trouble. Someone whispered, "She's the one they want," while another muttered, "Why risk your life for her?" Jack ignored them all. He looked into Sky's wide, frightened eyes. "Remember what I told you," he whispered fiercely. No matter what, I stay with you. The enforcers reached their carriage, pushing and yelling, pulling Jack to his feet. You move, one barked. Two grabbed Sky, their hands rough. Jack twisted free, shouting, let her go. She's done nothing wrong. But the hunters were. They're tall and cruel, faces full of hatred. One struck Jack in the face with a heavy fist, sending him to the floor. Blood filled his mouth. The world spun. Sky cried out, fighting to reach him. Please don't hurt him. Don't hurt anyone. But the hunters only laughed, dragging her away. The passengers stared, afraid to intervene, afraid to even look. One child hid behind her mother, crying silently. Jack crawled across the filthy floor, grabbing a dropped baton, used it to haul himself up, eyes wild with desperation. Let her go, he roared. The hunters ignored him, but the enforcers hesitated. Some of them looked uncertain. This was not what they'd signed up for. The leader, the same man who had checked their ID, stepped forward, confusion on his face. Jack's voice cracked with emotion. She's just a child. She's not trash, not property, not something to be thrown away. She's someone. If you take her, you're no better than those monsters in the junkyard. For a moment, no one moved. The train rattled in the cold dawn, and the only sound was Sky sobbing. Then the enforcer leader slowly lowered his weapon. We're supposed to protect the helpless, he said quietly, looking at his team, not hand them over to killers. Strange silence filled the carriage. The other enforcers shifted, some nodding. The leader turned on the hunters. You're not taking her, he said, voice firm. The hunters hissed, baring sharp teeth. One lunged, but the enforcers blocked their way. Stun batons raised. Fight broke out. Shouts, sparks, the crackle of weapons. Passengers ducked and covered their heads as the violence erupted all around. Jack dove for Sky, grabbing her arm. This way, he shouted, pulling her under the benches as chaos reigned above them. A hunter reached down, grabbing for Sky's ankle, but she kicked him hard, Jack swinging the baton with all his strength. The hunter howled in pain and fell back. The enforcers fought bravely, outnumbered but fueled by newfound courage. Several passengers joined in on. Old man swung his crutch. A mother shielded her children with her body. A young woman threw her suitcase at a hunter's head. Bit by bit, the attackers were forced back. In the confusion, Jack and Sky crawled toward the nearest exit. The carriage door was jammed, but Jack kicked it hard, and it finally slid open. Freezing wind and the soft glow of morning spilled in. "Jump!" Jack yelled. Sky didn't hesitate. She leaped into his arms, and together they tumbled onto the frosty ground, rolling beneath the train for cover. Behind them, the fight raged, but the enforcers' shouts began to win out. Jack pulled Sky up. We have to run as far as we can. She nodded, grabbing his hand tightly. They dashed through the grass, away from the tracks, away from the city and the junkyard, and everything that wanted to hurt or own them. They ran until the train was just a distant sound until the sun rose. High and golden in the sky at last, when they could run no farther, Jack and Sky collapsed in a quiet field. Sky rested her head on Jack's shoulder, her breath soft and even. The danger was behind them. The pain, the fear, the nights alone, all of it faded in the bright morning. For the first time, Sky let herself believe in the future. "Thank you," she whispered, voice full of hope and wonder. "You didn't leave me. You showed me I matter." Jack smiled, tears shining in his eyes. "You're not trash, Sky. You're family now." Together, they watched the sunrise too. Survivors, found in the darkness, now free. And as the world awakened around them, a new story began, one of hope, courage, the unbreakable bond between a human and the girl everyone else tried to throw away. Asterisk.